Oh, I'm here for HB96. So there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about with HB96. So in that email I just sent to all of you, there are links. The most important link in that video or in that email is Odoo's HB96 FAQ. Okay, this is the latest and the greatest information about HB96. To summarize what this says is that now we are concentrating on tracking chronic absenteeism, and the state wants districts to start catching students before it's too late. And so when a student hits 5%, districts should be acknowledging that and trying to attempt to get the student back on track before it's too late and they're 10% absent from school. Okay, this FAQ also, I want to point out a couple other things. So we are no longer tracking medical absences. Do schools and districts need to define medical and non-medical? The definitions of medical and non-medical are within the discretion of the school and the district. Local board policy may include examples of these. But as of September 30th, how long no longer references the distinction between these. Okay? If you want to still track them, you can, but it is not required anymore. So I'm going to show you later, if you want to still track them, what you can do. So to go along with this, Odoo is no longer getting any of the HB96 records. So I'm sorry, HB 410. So what used to happen is when a student was habitually absent and they hit one of those thresholds, when they hit the threshold, that data was going to the Department of Education. When you sent a letter home, when a student hit excessive absence thresholds, that date of that letter was going to the Department of Education. None of that is happening anymore. Okay, and if you're not sure what I'm referring to, if I just randomly pull up a student and I would go to, I'm just going to pick this Lauren Barber. Remember, this is scrambled data. You're not seeing real kids here. These are not their real names. If I go to this absence intervention page, the Department of Education used to get, if I would create this intervention, they used to get this data down here in an FT transfer. That is no longer happening for 25-26. Odoo no longer wants that data. Okay, so they're not getting the A's, the B's, the C's, and the D's. So if someone, your EMIS coordinator had said to you, oh, this student doesn't have a B, I need you to fix that. None of that is being sent to the Department of Education anymore. What is getting sent as far as attendance is the student's FS attendance record. This was like this last year, it's like this year. Okay, so the data that's on this FS attendance record, this is what the Department of Education is getting. Okay. Those figures also coincide with chronically absent figures. So if I pull up a student, well, first let's go into MRS. Okay, so we have developed a report in MRS. So if you go into this attendance folder, you're going to see an HB96 report. You could also type HB96 up here and it's going to take you there. Okay, HB96. All right, so that report in this attendance folder is going to give you who is chronically absent. All right, I cannot change your access and give you access to this report. Your district super user has to give you that access. So if you send a ticket to Meta and say, hey, I went to that Zoom training, but I can't access MRS, we're going to advise you that you need to contact your district super user. That's the person who controls the security, and they're going to have to update your access so you have access to this report, okay? So I have this report set up to run off my Play database. So let me run it real quick. You're going to find it in the attendance folder. Oops. So you're going to find it in the attendance folder. Now, if I come here and I run this for my district that I'm using today, which is Acme. When you run a report in MRS, you've got to choose something from this dropdown. So I'm going to choose it for the high school. That's all I'm going to run it for. I want these status codes, and I just want grades 9, 11, and 12. 9, 10, 11, 12. And I view that report. So this report is going to show us who is chronically absent. So if those of you that have been checking out this FAQ from Odoo, there seems to be some confusion on what constitutes chronically absent. Is it the kid's calendar they're on? Do we take those hours? Do we take the minimum number of hours? Well, our report does either. You can choose which one you want to use, okay? But I'm going to get into more of that here in a minute. So I just ran this report. Katie Zamora, right? She's on the default calendar. The calendar she's on has a possible number of hours of 1,111. That's way over the state min of 1,001 hours for grade 7 through 12, okay? So that state minimum for her grade level is 1,001. As of today, so this number of hours possible, as of today, this is the number of hours possible of school. So there are 344.5 hours possible as of today, November 3rd. As of the last time I ran that house or ran the add up EMIS calc. And so she has attended, Katie has attended 166.58 of those 344 hours. She's been absent 177 hours to date. So if this column here is there's 344 possible, she's missed 177. She's been absent 51% of the time. This next column is the state minimum. So there is, for her grade level, a state minimum required of 1,001. She's been absent 177. She's 17% absent. This last column, and this is what the report is sorted by, is absent percentage for the year. So the calendar Katie's on has a possibility of 1,111 hours. She's missed 177. For the whole school year on that calendar she's on, she's 16% absent. Okay, so why do we have multiple options here? Well, that email that I just sent you to all registered participants has an excerpt from Odoo's Office of Attendance, where we specifically asked them, all right, do we use the state minimum of 1,001 hours, or do we use the hours possible for the calendar assignment for the student? You can read that response, and they're telling us to use the number hours possible for the calendar. And that's what we've done, but we've also given you another column so you can use the state minimum. And we also have the third column that says, well, here's what they are today, because as you can tell in Patrick's response from the Department of Education, he's like, well, really, you should be tracking as of today, because by then they're way off track. If you wait till they get to the 50% of the entire school year, or 5% of the entire school year. I hear someone whispering. Do we have question? Okay. So again, this report will give you all of it. Now, I'm going to try to pull up that email I sent you. Okay, this is what it looks like. I fibbed. Okay, hang on a sec. I'm trying to pull up the email I sent you. Okay, I had to refresh my page. I have multiple screens if you're wondering why I'm dazing off. I'm not. Ah, here it is. Okay. So here's the email that was just sent, and it will also be sent to all users on our email distribution list here in about 15 minutes. But below here is where I asked the Office of Attendance this exact question. Should I use 1,001 or should I use the number of hours possible on the CAL? And this is their exact response, okay? So we've included Patrick's email. We've got the Office of Education's email. You have specific questions on how to interpret HB96. Please utilize these resources. Okay, so let me get this out of here. And let me actually send the other email to all users. So anybody on our email distribution list is about to get that same email that you guys just got. Okay.
Melissa,
yes.
sorry, we have two questions. And one is, do medical absences count towards the 5 and 10%?
Yes, check out that email I just sent. I specifically mentioned that. So if I pull that email up again, it says number, oh, my numbers don't come through. Love Eventbrite. Okay, if your district still wants to track medical, you need to go into absence types maintenance, edit each medical and mark the medical absence group and save. Add up EMIS must be run. The HB96 attendance percentage report will include all absences, even medical. Okay.
Okay, and then the other question was, so we don't have to send out the threshold letters anymore, question mark?
Well, as where I'm going to redirect you to read this FAQ. Okay, you still have to track habitual truancy. Okay, this says, what's the difference between chronic and habitual? As of the 30th, chronically absent students as missing 10% of school. Blah, 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 blah. Ohio law defines habitual truant by 30 or more consecutive, 42 or more hours per month, and 72 hours per year. Okay, do schools need to define medical and non-medical? All right, what's the definition of habitual? Habitual is any student of compulsory age who's absent without legitimate excuse from public school. As of September 30th, when a student meets the definition of habitual truant, the school must file a complaint in juvenile court if the student is not making satisfactory progress in improving attendance. When deciding whether to file a complaint in court, what determines if a student has made satisfactory progress? Setting and communicating a clear definition of satisfactory progress is a key component. Attendance staff may consider individual barriers, communication with family. Satisfactory progress does not look the same for all students. Habitual truancy requirements. What happens when a student becomes habitual truant? The school attendance staff must communicate in writing to the student about the legal consequences of being truant. The school and district attendance staff shall file a complaint in court unless the staff determines the kid is making satisfactory progress. If the student and the student's family cease continuing making progress, the staff shall file the complaint. In addition, local policy may include other requirements as parent guardian participation in an education program and length of time procedures used to monitor. What's the role of an absent intervention team? As of the 30th of September, 2025, absence intervention teams are only required to work with students at risk of being chronically absent. Chronically absent is the 10%. They are not required for students who are habitual. Schools and districts will define the work for their absence intervention team by their local policy. For example, they might be tasked with monitoring attendance data. Do absences caused by suspensions count towards habitual? No. So that's always been that way. If you suspend a kiddo from school, that does not count towards their habitual absences. Okay, so remember, I don't have any legal training. When I read this, that tells me I don't have to send out the letters anymore. If your district still wants to do them or you want further clarification, please email that attendance@education.ohio.gov.
That's all we have right now.
Okay. All right, so if I go to this kiddo, let me find someone who's on my report. Katie Zamora, she's 16. All right, let's find someone who's teetering on the 5. Okay. So why we've given you multiple columns? Because this kiddo here, Pearl Clay. So Pearl's a 9th grader. She has missed 51.8 hours of school. If we go by the 1,001 required, she's 5.1%. If we go by her calendar says she's 1,111 hours needed, then she's only 4.7%. I've given you Patrick's response of which one he says we should use. So I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which column you feel is best. Personally, I think I should be tracking all these kiddos that are already hitting 5% as of today, because chances are they're not going to get on track. If they're already missing 5% of school and there's only been 3 months, they're probably going to miss 5% of the entire school year, probably 20% of the entire school year. So if this were me, I personally would be looking at all these kids in column 3. Yeah, it's a lot, but I need to get them on track. So Johnny Maxwell, he's already missed 17 hours of school and he's 5%. But he's only 1.5% of the entire school year. Okay, so it's up to you. But again, you have Patrick's response, and he's telling us it would be best to have the 5%. Oops, let me pull this back over again so you see what I'm reading. It would be best to have 5% be for the total number of assigned hours rather than the minimum. However, it is important to note that depending on how the code is written, 5% might not show up on a radar until they've missed 7 to 9 school days. Schools really need to intervene long before that. And I agree with that. That's why I would say look at the third last column. But that's my personal opinion.
Melissa, question for you. Somebody has asked, since the policy started on September 30th, why are medically excused absences counting towards total hours from the beginning of the school year?
They always have. So medical absences were always included in the total numbers that went to EMIS to ODU on the FS attendance. That FS attendance tab was every absence possible. So if you went to a kid's FS attendance tab last year and you look them up, let's say Sally Joe had missed 25 hours because she was in the hospital and had surgery. When you looked at Sally Joe's FS attendance, it included all of the absences, which were different numbers than were on the absence intervention page. Okay, the absence intervention page had grouped out the medical and had not included them in excessive and habitual. But every absence has always been included in the figures on the FS attendance. So Michelle, read that question again.
Since this policy started on September 30th, why are our medically excused absences counting towards total hours from the beginning of the school year?
Okay, and now they were always counting from the beginning of the school year.
A couple other questions regarding what about students who didn't start the school mid-year? The denominator is accounting for the total hours based on the calendar.
Well, then we're getting into, should we track that calendar? Their minimum required is still 1,001. The total possible on the calendar they're assigned is still 1,001. In my opinion, that's why I need to look at the third column. Because the third column is going to tell me, well, Sarah started on October 1. Today's November 30th. There's been like 20 days of school, right? 20 times 6, 120 hours possible. And Sarah's only missed. So this third column is going to be how many hours are possible for that kid and how many hours they've missed. So for Sarah, there's 120 hours possible for her, and she's missed 2 hours. She's nowhere close to 5%, and that will be reflected in this percentage here. So remember, this report is just a tool for you to use to help figure out who is chronically absent.
Another
there another?
question.
Okay.
Another question. This question goes back to medically excused absences. Is the school requesting doctor's notes moving forward, or do we no longer need to collect those?
That was never a requirement. That was always your policy. So ODE, and I'm calling them ODE because this is what they said back in 2019. It is the district's discretion what they count as medical and if they require a doctor's note. That has never been part of the law that you need a doctor's note. That's your district's policy. So, you know, I've worked with a lot of districts. Some districts, mom calls and says, Jenny has a doctor's appointment. She's getting her braces off at 11. I'm going to sign her out. That was good enough for the district. They signed her out, signed her back in. They marked her out 2 hours medical. I have another district that I've worked with. They had strict requirements, doctor's note, or it's unexcused. That is your district's policy, and it's always been the district's policy. There's never been a requirement to require doctor's notes at the state level.
Clarification. So just to be clear, the state cares about students missing less than 5% of the required 1,001 hours, question mark, regardless if the district has 1,111 assigned.
I think there's a who have more than, not less than. Can you read that again? It should be the state.
So just to be clear, the state cares about students missing less than 5% of the required 1,001 hours, question mark.
should be more. The state's concentrating on kids who have missed 5%. So to backtrack, there's the verdict's still out. Are we counting 1001? Are we looking at the district's calendar of 1011, 1111? Okay, so I've given you exactly what we've asked ODE or ODO, and I've given you exactly what they've responded with. They're telling me that you need to look at the kids' minimum required number of hours on their calendar. That's what Patrick's response here says. So that's what we have in this last column. Other people are reading the HB96 FAQ and they're interpreting it. It's the minimum number of hours, which is the second last column. So I would suggest if you want a concrete, hey, Patrick, do I count 1001 or do I count 111? I would email the Office of Attendance. And I suspect they're going to give you the same response he gave me, which says you should be using the calendar, the total number of assigned hours. Because here's another way to look at this. So these kids here at this district have to go 1,111 hours. We don't just stop counting at 1,001. Like when the kid hits 1,001 hours, like, oh, it doesn't matter anymore. No, we count the whole thing. Does that make sense? Like we're not stopping at the state minimum. We're taking this a step further, and this district's going 1,111. Okay, but our report is giving you both columns. Both. So again, the second last one is the state minimum hours. And honestly, we didn't need a special report to track that. Because if the state minimum hours is 1,001 and 10% of 1,001 is 100 hours and 5% of that is 50, you're just looking for every kid who's 50% or has missed 50 hours, right? So this last column, like the state minimum, that's kind of easy peasy because it's just any kid who's missed 50 hours if they're grade 7 through 12. This last column takes a little more you got to figure some math because it's how many hours are possible on their calendar, how many have they missed, and what's that percentage. So if I go back to page 1, to me, this fourth last column, number of hours absent 177, this is the important one. So if you're interpreting this as anything, you're looking at the 1,001, that's 50 hours. So it's anybody that has over 50 in the fourth last column. You don't even honestly need to look at the second last column. Like this kid's 49.67 hasn't hit the 50. They're 4.96%. Are there other questions, Michelle?
Yes, a couple people have asked, can a report be created that would only produce those students in the 5% and 10% threshold rather than every student?
I'm not sure there's a benefit to that because then which I would say at this point in time, no, it's going to give you everyone and it's going to give their number of hours possible. Because
Good.
like we're splitting hairs, 4.9%. Honestly, that's 5%. We should probably, this kid, Sarah McDowell, it's only November 3rd and she's already 4.9. We need to start working with her to try to get her back on track. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, another question. if a student starts mid-year, should we put their attendance from their previous school in ProgressBook?
You have the option of doing that on their external absences, and that's how it's always worked. So that is actually something that we had done with House Bill 410. So when a kid comes from another district, you can enter their external absences or their absences from that district on the external absence page. The attendance calc is never going to include those. Now, if you're wondering, should you be tracking this chronic using their externals too and what they attended at the other district? That would be a question for the Office of Attendance. My hunch is they're going to tell you yes, and you're not going to need to take into account what their other absences were.
So
Hang
another,
on,
oh, go
hang
ahead.
on. I thought I had my darn, how do I get, I don't know how I got signed back into Microsoft Teams, Lord. Okay, I think it's off this time. Okay, I'm sorry, what, Michelle?
Okay, so there's a couple more, but I'm gonna go back to one says, so the state wants students to attend more than 95% of school based on the minimum hours 1001.
I'm not sure but I'm not sure I understand what the question is for me.
It was just a statement, so I can move on
Okay,
to another.
okay.
Okay.
So
Does
here's
our,
the, oh, hey, Michelle, you guys see Lauren Barber on the screen, right? That's who you
yes.
see. Okay. So here's that external absences where you can enter absences from another district. They're never going to be included in that kid's FS attendance tab. That's never worked that way. So the hours that, let's say they attended Columbus Public and they were absent 20 hours and you enter that on externals, that's never going to combine here on this FS attendance. It never has. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Michelle. You still there?
Sorry about that. I keep
That's okay.
unmuting myself. Um, I currently, and I'm going to come back to some comments that are prior. I currently have a student that is showing on this absent percentage for the year at 173%. The student was foster placed to another district from the beginning of the year until 9/28, and we had them on a default calendar. He was back with us 9/29. Do you know why he would be pulling at such a high percentage?
Yes, because that is sorting off the last column. Okay, it's going off the total. Look at the third last column. I would send that also to us in a ticket so we can explain in detail. But I can't pull up any specific students since there are almost 200 people on this webinar and it's being recorded. So
Okay.
go ahead and send that to us in a ticket. And in that case, that kiddo, I'd be looking at the third column for that attendance percentage. Now, the reason I purposely had this report changed last week to sort by this absence percentage column, this absent for year, is because so when you put it out in Excel, you don't have to sort it yourself. It's automatically sorted that way. Okay, so that was a change we made last week. I think on Thursday, we added this absence percent, or we added state minimum. We added this, I think, Thursday, and then I had this column sorting. And those changes were made after that EMIS session that I joined on Tuesday morning. So I think we made those changes Wednesday or Thursday, I don't remember.
You ready for another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. As of right now, when I pull up my threshold report, I'm having to calculate the hours for each student who has hit excessive or habitual by subtracting the medically excused dates. Moving forward, are we supposed to send a letter when a student has hit their hours in parentheses excessive due to medically excused days question mark, or is this up to our district?
It's up to your district. The law has changed and we are no longer tracking excessive. Excessive was all absences but medical. That is no longer tracked. It's up to your district if you still want to track it. So
How would we, oh, go ahead.
if your district decides to do medical, like you want those medical absences and you want to track them, first thing you're going to do, so here's my middle school. You're going to go into absence types. Type absence type in the cheater. You need to edit the medicals and you need to mark them the medical group. Then you need to go to the district level and you need to run add up EMIS and update mode. If you don't have access for this, you're going to have to ask your EMIS coordinator or your super user to run add up EMIS and update mode. And this add up EMIS and update mode is the same attendance calc that runs every night for every district automatically. I think it's like 6 or 7 p.m. now. So I'm running add up EMIS. You can't even run it in verify mode. Okay, you can only do update mode. You can run it as many times as you want. You will wait for that to finish on your management screen. So the attendance calculator is done. Just ran it. If you're a bigger district, it might take longer. Now, if I go pull up the student in the middle school, so the middle school is the one who has that medical still enabled, okay? Now, obviously you wouldn't do that. You would do the whole district, include the medicals, or not the whole district, include the medicals. You wouldn't do one building, but this is the scrambled data that I'm working with. So if I just do asterisk search, and if I go to this absence intervention page, so this kiddo has 15 medical absences, right? If I go look at, that's because this is still broken out. It says the calculus just ran. If I go look at this kiddo's school absences, there's the medical, 4 different medicals. And again, since I have those broken out, they're included here on this absence intervention page. We don't have to track this anymore. If your district's deciding to, that's totally fine, but you don't have to track it per that HB96 FAQ. So now this kiddo has missed 19 days and 19 hours and 15 hours. So they have no unexcused absences. So if I would look at this, so here's about 6 hours because they missed the whole day. Here's about 6 hours. They missed the whole day. Another 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. And then here's a partial. And there's a partial. Okay. So remember, if I go look at this medical, he's only got 15 hours medical, 19 hours excessive. So this excessive is anything that's not medical. So now if I go look at this kid's FS attendance tab, they have missed 34 hours of school. So this is what you're looking at for chronic absenteeism. These numbers have never excluded medical. Okay, these numbers on FS attendance were the kids and all the absences the kid had regardless of what they were. And so notice this doesn't match 3470 doesn't match what's on that absence intervention page because I have it broken out into still looking at the medical. All right. Now, if I flip back to the high school and I've got a kiddo that I know has whole bunch of medicals. So if I look at, I think his name's Blevins. Lev. So if I look at him and it was George. Oh, I wrote that down wrong. Okay. Scratch Blevins. He was at the middle school. Okay, let's do this. I'm just randomly picking somebody. Okay, so if I go to their student absences, this kiddo doesn't. I'm looking for somebody with some medicals at the high school. I'm sorry, I thought I had this wrote down, but I did not. Here's a medical. Okay, Lauren Barber. She's got one medical, whole day, 6 hours, right? And then she's missed 6 hours here, 6 hours there, a partial, and a part of the day here too. If I go to her absence intervention page, so I have medical ungrouped at the high school. So there's no medical absence grouped mark. When I go to her absence intervention page, see, there's nothing. They're all included in excessive. Everything is here. If I go to her FS attendance, there's a 23 hours. So those numbers match. Keep in mind that absence intervention page rounds. So that's why it says 23, it rounds, always rounding down, not rounding up.
Are you ready for another question?
Yep.
Okay, since you're talking about the student absence intervention screen, will the student absence intervention screen change to show percentage?
I think eventually it will because we've requested an enhancement request. So something to keep in mind is no ITC in the state. So whether you're with WOCO or you've got Buddy at HCC district, they don't have ability to change anything in ProgressBook as far as the way the page displays. So Frontline has to be the one to update that absence intervention page. We have requested an enhancement to update this absence intervention page to reflect the new HB96. Okay, I can't tell you what changes Frontline has in store for this page or when it will go into effect, but it has been requested that this page be updated.
Question, we are a community school and the state minimum is 920. My House Bill 96 report in MRS shows the state minimum as either 990 or 1001. Is this something that you all can change?
Probably. So for community schools, regardless of the grade, you have the same number of required hours? Question mark? Anybody know the answer to that?
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 920 no matter what grade for community school.
Okay. I will chat with Nathan to see if we can somehow rig that up.
Okay.
Because when you go to, let me take this off the screen real quick. I just gotta make sure I'm not showing anything important. I think okay. So when we go to the school demographics page, there's a school type. I think for community schools, it says community. And so I could see if Nathan can look at that field. And then if it's community, we display 920. But I will have to double check with Nathan to see if that's possible. Because that's the only place here in the application that I know that we're saying community school.
Okay, a couple scenarios, questions. How would we classify a student's absences who is medically excused due to surgery, but they are doing home instruction until released by their doctor to come back to school? Furthermore, how would we classify students' absence if they have a medical 504 that states they may miss days due to their chronic medical problems?
I'm definitely not qualified to answer that one. That's going to have to be Amos question or Office of Attendance.
Okay, another scenario question. What happens? I currently have a student that is showing in the absent. Oh, wait a minute. Jenny answered that one. Sorry. If a student, which I might be the same, if a student is doing home instruction through the school due to surgery, is that going to be counted against the student until released by their doctor to physically come back from school? I think it's
Yeah,
kind of the same.
yeah, I'm not qualified to answer that one either. I would tell you. So if we go to this kid's school absence page, anything entered on here is going to be included in the chronic absenteeism calc unless this absence type says non-absence. Okay, so this kiddo here, everything on this page is getting included. If I find somebody who's got a non-absence, and I'll show you what I mean. Here we go. NA, not absent, field trip. They documented this. This is not getting included. Everything else is going to be included. Okay, this one's not either. And non-absent, school related. That is not being included in the chronic absenteeism. Everything else on here is going to get included in the kid's chronic absenteeism calculation. That was the way House Bill worked too. The House Bill calc worked. It was taking the absences minus the medical, minus the non-absences, and that's how it was coming up with those figures. So if that kiddo, if you've got absences entered for that student, they're going to get included in the calculation. Now, the FAQ addresses some of those medical questions. If I scroll up here, okay, do they need to define it? The definition of medical and non-medical is at their discretion. I remember seeing something else about in here about medical. How can schools support students with chronic absences and illnesses? Okay, chronic illnesses. School and district policy can define ways an administrator may collaborate with parents and guardians and medical teams of students dealing with acute chronic physical and mental health challenges. The collaboration can develop individualized responses to the student's needs. Create alternative ways for the school to document absences as excused or medically excused, and may seek mutually agreed upon ways to educate school staff on those needs. Someone asked this, doctor's notes. Are schools required to use doctor's notes to count an absence as medical? No. For auditing purposes, schools are required to maintain documentation to support an excused absence. This could be a note from a medical professional, a call log documenting a conversation with a parent. Are students who cannot attend school due to chronic or terminal illness considered habitual truant? No, because those are excused.
Next question. What happens when a student hits the 10% absence for the year? Say a student hits 10% November 5th. What are the repercussions to the students, parents, and school district?
So I encourage you to take a look at this document. Okay, the attendance law FAQ, because if we come here, it has okay. As of September 30th, the law does not require schools and district to report dates of attendance notification. So that's the A, B, C, D events and the absence intervention plans. I'm trying to find the part where it says you need to send them a letter. Students who miss Ohio law. If someone finds it before me, holler. Ohio law requires schools must communicate about attendance concern no later than when a student has missed 5%. This is approximately 45 to 50 hours, depending on the student's grade level. Schools and districts should provide strong attendance messaging to everyone in their school communities, and then increase support and communication to students missing as little as 2 to 3 days per month. Without intervening early and often, those students will be on track to become chronically absent and miss valuable school time. So, one thing I forgot to tell you. So if I pull up that student, who was it? Kamora or Zamora? Okay, so Zamora, 177 hours of school missed. Over half the school year they've already missed. If I pull her up, so it was Zamora Katie, and I go to their absence intervention page. One of the things that we did a couple weeks ago and sent everyone an email about is we uploaded a 5 and a 10% letter for everyone to use. And by the way, the functionality to come here and print a letter has been in the system since I think 2017 or 18. So we've always had this print letter button, and you've always had the ability to upload attendance letters that you could print out when the kid hit the threshold. Okay, so we have gone and uploaded a 5 and a 10% letter to every district. So we went one by one and loaded this on the template page for all of you. So I've got Katie here. She's at the 16%. She needs the 10% letter. If I go here, I have a 10% letter. I click that. What it's doing is running on the fly for the kid I have in context. And it's going to, do I have my darn pop-ups turned off? There it is. Okay. I'm in Firefox and I normally don't use this. All right, so I'm going to save this file. It's going to tell me, yep, you already have one. Yes, I do. And now I go to that folder where I just saved it on my computer. And open it. Here is the letter. So what it's doing is the kid you have in context, it's filling in their name. And then you can print this out and send it to the parent. You have the ability to tweak these letters. We've just kind of given you a starting point, but you can tweak the letters if you want to and make them more personalized for your district. But again, every district has a standard 5 and 10 loaded for them already.
So Melissa, there's like a few letter questions. I've kind of compiled them all together. So
Okay.
I think you kind of answered, but you might want to expand upon. It says, how do we update those letters? If we want to add our school letterhead, can the 5 and 10% letters be changed by a district if we want it to say something different?
Yes, you've always had the ability to tweak the letters. And if you go here, I'm going to give a plug for our documentation because we find so many people don't realize the stuff's out here. If you come here into this main page, you scroll down, there are 100 videos, probably more than 100. You go to this attendance videos, there's a how to tweak the letters video, okay? Tweaking, editing, absence, intervention letters. I will give a big disclaimer. It is really tricky. It is very difficult to tweak these letters and it will make you pull your hair out, promise you. I won't sugarcoat it and tell you, oh, it's so easy. They have bookmarks on them and they're so tricky. And if anybody's on this session and one of our districts that have used these letters and attempted to tweak them, they're probably sitting there at their desk shaking their head like, yes, I wanted to pull my hair out when I was working with these letters. So this is a video on how to tweak those letters. The other thing, want to plug the documentation because many people don't realize this is here either. If you click that question mark and you go Learning Center, this is Frontline's documentation that's available when you're logged into ProgressBook. So you can't save this URL and send it to your friend. They need to be logged in to ProgressBook to hit the doc site, okay? So I'm logged in, I can go to the documentation site. If you click the student information, here's all the student information documentation. If you come here to this procedural checklist, these are the step-by-steps. And a shameless plug, I wrote many of these when I worked at state support. Almost every one of these is something I wrote when I worked there years ago. You know, they've been updated and tweaked. But there's an absence intervention letters, and then here's all the bookmarks. So again, here's how I got to that. Go to the question mark, go Learning Center. That opens up a new tab. You're going to go student information. You're going to go procedural checklist. These are the step-by-steps. We come down here, absence intervention letters. You open that. Here is how to tweak the letters. It's also what I show you on the video. But if you're not a video person and get kind of tired of hearing my voice, which is understandable, you can use this documentation. And it's explaining, okay, you're going to use bookmarks and here's how you use the bookmarks. And then we come down to here's all the bookmarks that are possible. So these bookmarks are what makes these letters work. When I have a kid in context and I run the book or run the letter, it's what the bookmark is, what flood fills or what fills in the kid's name. So yes, you can tweak the letters. I would give it a try. You run into troubles, you're going to want to send us your letter that you're working on and what you're having issues with it. But please give it a try first, at least attempt it if you're trying to tweak these. And then if you run into issues and you're starting to pull your hair out, send it to us in a ticket so we can take a look at it.
Two more questions regarding letters. Do we have to document anywhere when the 5 and 10% letters are sent for a student?
That is not mentioned anywhere here in this FAQ, that you have to document that you sent a letter. Now, if it were me, what I would do, I'd come in here, I'd go to this kid's absence intervention page. Okay, I just printed the 10% for her, I'd go in here and I'd say, okay, I sent this one. I said, print 10%. Me personally, that's what I would do. Are you required to do that? No, but I'm a document, CYA, 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 and that's what I would do. Now, I can't choose chronic, so I'm going to choose excessive and probably here print 10% chronic. And then save that. Does the FAQ say I have to do that? No. But it did. Because again, I like to document everything.
We are sending letter to students who miss 5 and 10% of school. Any suggestions of when to send a letter before the 5%?
Again, if it were me, I'd be looking at this attendance to date. And I would be, so when, like many of you, we first found out about this at OETSA. Like that was the first time I'm like, wait, what's happening? And that was the first time this got on my radar. And when I originally heard about this, I said, we're already doing this. We've had a report in MRS that has figured out that kids' attendance percentage. We've had that report for 3 years and it's labeled chronic. And it has always been calculating their attendance percentage. So if I ran it today, what's their attendance percentage? And so when this first got on my radar, I figured we already have this. We're in good shape because I can already figure out who's already 5% and school's only been in session 2 months. And yeah, I know that if somebody's already 6% absent from school and school's only been in session 2 months, chances are that's probably not going to change and there's probably an issue there. You know, there's some rare exceptions, like, you know, a student was in a car accident the 3rd week of school, so they missed a whole week and a half. They missed 8 days. Okay, they're over the 5%. They're at 5% already. Now, that student in years past always had almost near perfect attendance. Are they going to turn it around? Probably, but that's typically not the scenario we're dealing with. Okay, so I would be looking at this 3rd column and hitting those kids that are already 5% and there's only 3 months of school. And I would be trying to get those kiddos on track because yeah, we've got a lot of them. I'm on page 3 and I've got all of these. Almost 3 whole pages of kids that are 5% as of today. So again, me personally, that's what I would be doing. So back to my whole story, sorry. So at the conference, I'm like, well, we already got this. And if you're wondering, well, what attendance report are you talking about, Melissa, that you say you've had forever? If you go into the attendance folder and there's been this report named chronic, I think I added the word chronic to it last year sometime. And it's got this big long title. It's probably right in front of my face. I just don't see it. There it is, right in front of my face. So this report has given that absence percentage as of the last time the House Bill Calc has ran. And we've had this for years. So then we start diving in deeper, and then people are telling us, well, no, it's the minimum number of hours. No, it's the calendar they're on. And that's when things got a little trickier, and we asked Patrick what we should do, and you have his response. So we decided to make this report. And originally this report just had, it had this absence year to date based on the calendar assignment, and it had the absence to date, which would be, you know, today there's been 3 months of school. This kiddo's 51% of the 3 months of school. And then recently we added the state minimum because, you know, there is some concern from folks. If I scroll down here, if we use this last column, which Patrick is telling me that's what we should use, if we use this, this kid is the first student we'd look at, John Gamble. He's 5.3. But if we use the state minimum, if you interpret it to use a state minimum, then we've missed those 4 kids. So that's why we've given you both. Now, if you use the third column, you're going to catch all of them. In my opinion, again, you're tired of me saying that, but that's what I would be looking at because those are the kids in trouble. The kid that's already 10% absent from school and missed 34 hours of school. Michelle, before the next question, another plug for MRS. Again, this is not, MRS is unique to Meta ProgressBook. So if you talk to your buddy at another district that doesn't have Meta as their support for ProgressBook, they don't have this report, okay? So please keep that in mind as you're sharing. Well, you know, Meta told me I should run this. And you tell your buddy and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is unique to us. This is something that we've developed. So any report that you run in MRS that you have access to, you're going to be able to come here. So here's that House bill attendance percentage. You click these 3 dots, you can subscribe. This is going to allow you to email the report on a set schedule. You set this up yourself. So I'm going to schedule this and you can schedule it to run. I want it to run every day. Run it at 9 o'clock. And when do I want it to start? Yep, start now. Apply that change. And now I want it to be emailed. Who do I want it to be emailed to? mdrip at metasolutions.net, then semicolon, Jenny, metasolutions.net. Okay, I want to include the report. Yes. What do I want it as? Send it to me in Excel, please. And daily report of chronic. And then down here, you pick what's the default value. Okay, so school year, it's defaulting to 25-26. Which district do I want to choose? Choose your district. What student status is, what grade levels, then create subscription. When you do that, then that report's going to start getting emailed. So you don't have to come in here every day and run it. It's going to do it for you. So that feature is available for any report in MRS. So just to quick recap how I got that to do that. You go into the folder, you click the 3 dots, and you subscribe. And that works for any report. Make sure you're changing the render format. You're either going to choose CSV or you're going to choose Excel probably. This report, you should choose Excel. You should export it in Excel because if I go back to the report and run it again real quick, when you put it in Excel, it comes out as a percentage that you can read easily, 16%. If you put it out in CSV, it's going to be like 0.16 and have like 9 digits after it. And it's not the easiest to read, and you've got to mentally convert it to a percentage. So my advice is export it into Excel. So if I run this again, and so if you run it on the fly and you're trying to get the report out, click there. I want Excel. Save it to my drive. And if I open that up, here's the report in Excel. Nice and pretty, sorted by column R. All right, you don't like column R. All right, that's fine. Go here, sort by Q. You want the state minimum. Or maybe you want the absence percentage to date. Maybe you want it by last name. Maybe you want it by grade level. You have the ability to do what you see fit once you get it in Excel. But when you do Excel, is these nice pretty columns over here. Again, if you do CSV, you get some like 10-digit decimal, which is not friendly on the eyes. Okay, Michelle, I'm ready for next question.
Okay, one more question regarding letters before we go to reports. Is there a way to have the letters automatically calculate a student's absent percentage?
No, that's not a bookmark that we have at this point in time. So the available bookmarks determine what is going to pull for that student, and their attendance percentage is not an available bookmark. So no, at this time, it's not going to be able to put their attendance percentage.
Okay, couple report related questions. So with the external absences from other schools, we will have to manually calculate those with our school's attendance for chronic question mark, or is this MRS report also pulling it for calculations?
It is not pulling externals. None of the other House Bill 410 reports pulled externals either. So that's going to be something manual that you would need to combine them.
Okay. ODEW says that the minimum number of hours is 910 for grades K through 6. Why does the MRS report say 990 in the state minimum hours column?
If it does, then Nathan might have accidentally put that. I bet it's a goof up. It should be 910.
Okay.
Unless I typed it wrong. But yes, it should be 910. We'll fix that.
Okay. How does this report compare to the yearly absence detail report?
Yearly absence detail report. I'm assuming we're talking about this one. So if I run this for oh shucks, hang on. If I go back into my play folder, play, attendance, daily or yearly absent detail report, right?
Yes, the yearly absence detail report.
If I run that for the high school, I don't want 1323 in UG.
And Melissa, to give you a little context, because that was my question, because I run the yearly absent detail basically weekly, and I give principals a report that says, these are the students who are chronically absent. And so I did a comparison while you were sitting, like while you were explaining stuff. So like comparison between the House Bill 96 report and the yearly absence details. For example, the House Bill 96 in one of the school buildings actually has like 3 additional students that will be considered chronically absent versus the yearly absence detail.
You'll want to send me that in a ticket so I can investigate and make sure you include the 3 students that you see on this that you don't on that other one.
Okay. And I didn't look that close. I just saw like when like you said, I exported it. So it's like one report said like 57 kids. The other report said only 60 or said 60. And so I'm like, okay, there's a difference of 3 kids that are for some reason not showing up on, like they're not, they're not the same.
Yes, send us that in a ticket so we can investigate.
Will do.
Because I don't remember what we even wrote that report for. So some of you, I don't write these reports. I just talk to Nathan and say, hey, Nathan, this is what I needed to do. Nathan is the whiz behind all of these reports. Okay, so I don't remember why we wrote yearly absence detail, honestly. I don't know what it was even for. So yeah, send us that and ticket so we can look at it and compare the 2.
Okay, and only because I was comparing, because as you were saying, basically column P on the House Bill report, like the absence year to date, like that is closer. That's actually where my numbers were close to each other with using column P, which is like absence to date versus, like you said, the state minimum or the absence per the year. So like that was very much so very similar to the yearly absence detail report.
Okay. Yeah, put all that in the ticket. So when you guys send us tickets, the more detail you can provide, the quicker we're going to be able to get you an answer and decipher and explain what's happening. So put everything you can in the ticket and then we'll take a look at it.
So while you're on that screen, Melissa, another question. When I run a year-to-date attendance percentage per student, why do open enrolled out say absent percentage 100%? Is this ignored when running our district and schools percentages, or do we potentially not have something marked correctly in ProgressBook?
Send us that in a ticket, but my hunch is those kids are open enrolled out. They're on non-attending 0% time calendar. When you run HB96, it's defaulting. Not that one. Now I have too many tabs open. Okay, this one, it's defaulting to statuses that are overall active. Res attending elsewhere isn't marked. So I'm only getting the kids who are overall status active. If you want to change the statuses, you can unmark them, but by default, that's what's included. And if you're not sure what I'm referring to, so if you go here to your student status codes page, there is this overall student status. Overall active, that's what we are selecting by default. And that resident elsewhere is not overall active, so they're not included. Again, if you want to run this report with everybody, you go for it, but I would not. So by default, we are marking the kids who are overall student status active.
Is there an updated report that includes the updated truancy thresholds?
What do you mean? Because the thresholds aren't changed. Or wait, are we talking about habitual? Habitual
Whoever
hasn't
asked that,
changed.
whoever asked that question, can you, Kristen?
Yeah. Do we the monthly excessive and yearly excessive have those been removed, right?
They're still in the application. They're still going to run on the report. You don't have to track them.
Okay, okay, so we can use the same report. We just don't have to track those two. It'll still tell us those though.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I assume snow days will change the sub-calendar hours and adjust the percentages question?
That is correct. As long as you enter the snow days right, it will. Yes.
Do the percentages count for preschool students?
This is grades K through 12. So no, law says you have to track this for K through 12. When the student hits 18, says no longer has to track it. Most people do anyway. But you come here, yeah, somewhere on this FAQ it even mentions K and a kindergartner who's 6 and blah blah blah. You do kindergarten through 12th grade. Ah, here it is. What's compulsory age? Right in front of my face. A child between 6 and 18. A child under 6 of age who is enrolled in kindergarten also shall be considered compulsory age. So that was the same way House Bill worked. We never tracked House Bill 410 for our preschool kids. It was just kindergarten through 12th graders.
So I think I've captured all of the questions and some I've, joined them together. So if you feel I've missed something, if you could retype it again in the messages, then I'll tell Melissa, but I think that's all the questions so far.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for attending and thank you for your patience as we, as the entire state, try to figure out what exactly we're supposed to be tracking. So again, if you have questions that I'm not able to answer, please submit them to that office of attendance to Patrick. Or please consult your school's legal counsel. No more questions, Michelle?
One more just came in. Is the MRS link working currently? I'm not able to log into mine. Says link is currently unavailable.
Yeah, let's try it. So I do not have Chrome open. If I go into Chrome and I come here, MRS I have saved as a favorite. I log in. This is my ProgressBook username and password. Works for me. So the trick with MRS, I can't stress this enough. If you've been saving your password, the ProgressBook to your computer, you're never ever going to get an MRS. You're gonna have to reset your password because your MRS, yes, is using your ProgressBook username and password, but it's authenticating off of Active Directory. It is a totally different website. So if you don't know and don't have your password memorized or don't have your username memorized and you've been saving it to your computer and just click and log in, you're probably never ever going to get an MRS. So you're going to need to go to the login page of student information And you're going to need to reset your own password. So when you do this, it looks like this, mel.mec. This is the fake account I'm using right now. And I think this has an email. You come here, JQ, everybody loves these. They're pain in the butt. And even I have difficulty with them, okay? There's no way around them. It's a security measure we have to have. So I do that. If you get this far, you are golden. That's where my email, that's where my password reset's going to go. I'm going to have to type in another CAPTCHA code. And then I'm going to have to go in my email and go dig up and click the link and reset the password. So when you come here, keep in mind all of these requirements. If your new password doesn't meet these requirements, you're not going to get in. And this is for your own safety and the safety of others in the state that are using this software, because the last thing we want to do is get hacked or held for ransom. That's why I take this security very, very serious. So again, if you're trying to get an MRS and you can't, it's probably because you saved your password to your computer and you might think you know it, but you're probably not typing in the right password.
Another question. Should tardies be calculated in the absence percentage?
Yes, every absence is included in the absence percentage. Yes. So if I pull up that kit again, let me get out of here before I get myself in trouble. Okay, so this is play. I'm at the high school. Katie, if I go to her school absence, so I type school AB in the cheater, this is all Katie's absences. Here's a tardy, that's included. 9:16, she came in. So I don't know exactly when school starts here, 8 o'clock. She got docked. Let's pretend it's 8 o'clock. She got docked 1 hour and 16 minutes. Everything is getting included except non-absences. If I scroll Katie, does she even have any non-absences? I don't see any. So everything on here for Katie is getting included in her percentage.
I do not see any more questions.
Alrighty, so that video.
Hold on, one question, or wait up,
Okay.
wait a minute. In your example, the tardies are marked as not absence.
Yeah, I knew someone would notice that. Okay. Go back to school AB. Never, ever look at this column absence level. We've asked it to be removed since 2017. It's not. Okay. Partial unexcused. If I edit this, partial unexcused absence is a qualifier partial. If I go look at the absence types, qualifier, anything that has a qualifier absent, late, or partial is included. So those tardies, so if I look at that tardy, which was unexcused, TU, tardy unexcused. You go to the absence type, TU, tardy unexcused, qualifier late tardy is being included. The only absences not included in the percentage and sent to ODU on the FS attendance tab are those with qualifier non-absence. Again, I wish I had a magic eraser and could erase that absence level column, but I can't. I wish I could put a little block on everyone's screen every time they looked at that page, but I can't. So those are included. If you're like, no, they're not, Melissa, it's not true. Well, experiment, go delete them on play, go run the calc, and I bet you that kid's absences that they missed is lower now because it's not including that hour and 15 minutes there. It's not including this 21 minutes here. This one too is an hour and 10. All these partials say non-absence also. All of this is included. Again, please ignore that absence level column.
There was a question about, can you show one more time how to get to the subscription? Kate did provide a link to the video, but didn't know if you had time or can show that again.
Yep. So here's what MRS looks like. Here's another disclaimer about MRS. So you might see all these folders, but if your security person, the main person at your district who we have main ProgressBook contact with, the super user, if they didn't give you access to the marked folder, you're still going to see it. But when you come in here and attempt to run reports, so if I compare two GPAs, if you don't have access to this folder, your district school drop down is blank. Okay, I have access to everybody. I see it all. But if so in MRS, you're going to see all the folders. If you attempt to run a report and the district building drop down is blank, you do not have access to this folder. Okay, so how I schedule, you go attendance, find this 9-6 report, click the 3 dots. Going to go subscribe. And I'm going to set up the subscription. Most important thing, please change this to CSV or Excel. If you're doing the HB96, please do it in Excel. But that's how you schedule. And again, you can do that with any MRS report. Can you schedule the Analytic Hub reports? No, you cannot. That's why we always steer people to MRS. Okay, so once we've edited the video and make sure it's ready to post, it will be posted here on the main page of student information. You're going to scroll down to the attendance videos and this recording will be here. That's where you're going to see the recording for this session. That will be later this afternoon. So please don't email us in an hour and say, where's it at? We got to make sure it's ready and post it this afternoon. Any other questions?
I'm not showing any in the chat.
Okay, if we get new information, rest assured we will communicate it with you. If something new comes down the pike, we will definitely communicate that with you and it will be sent to all districts on our email distribution list. So if how do I get on your email distribution list? Contact your super user and they can send us a ticket requesting you be added to the distribution list. Now, keep in mind, you're going to get emails about everything and not just about attendance. So you're going to get release install emails. You're going to get when reports are down emails. You're going to get downtime emails. So please don't mark them as spam and please don't ignore them. We try not to send too many communications because we know what happens is oh, they're sending us another email. I'm not going to read that. And so, but when we do send something, it's important. And please read it and distribute it, forward it to anybody in your district that you think can benefit from it. Because there'll be a lot of people on this session who don't want all the emails. They're only concerned about the attendance session. And in that case, I wouldn't want to be added to the distribution list. I just want someone in my district to forward me email when it was something important that pertained to me. Okay, Michelle, anything else?
No, just a lot of comments thanking you for the training.
You're welcome, everyone. Having moments of deja vu from HB 410. Yeah, that was a challenge when we rolled that out. This is another challenge. And again, we're all in this together, trying to figure it out together. And we appreciate your patience. And we've hopefully given you the tools so that you can succeed and get started on tracking these students. All right, so it's 11:10. There's no other questions. We'll go ahead and end this session. And again, the recording will be posted later this afternoon to that portal page with all the videos, the one I have showing here. It'll be in the attendance video section playlist. All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your